So welcome everyone. My name is Carole Peters, and I'm proud to serve as the president and CEO of United Way Next. I'm grateful to see all of you here and lots of new faces, which is wonderful. I'd like to take a minute and introduce our board chair, Ed Rivera, and let him share just a few words with you before we kick off the session today.
Great,
So,
thank you, Carole. Let me add my thank you and to Carole, but also my welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. I don't know what your status is. I think many of you are new members to us, and so welcome as a new member. If you're a continuing member just joining in today to make connections, that's terrific as well. You've just joined an organization that's gone through a lot of change, and that's been due to previous leaders of our board, but also to Carole's predecessors, but also to Carole. Carole's done an awful lot to bring a lot of change to our organization, real positive. So we hope that you enjoy your membership and are able to connect with other members. But also, Carole is very accessible and willing to help. So give her a shout from time to time. But certainly look forward to joining you for the next hour and getting to know more of you.
thanks, Ed.
Sure.
Well, it's great. It's great to see so many familiar faces and also names, right? We oftentimes are emailing one another and we don't always get to see the faces. So today is really all about you. And I understand that some of you may be actually new to United Way Next as individual members. Your United Way may be a member and you're joining today just to learn more about the different resources that are available. And as Ed mentioned, maybe you've been a member for a while and you're just becoming familiar with the fact that we actually offer some different resources that you could benefit from. So what I'd like to do, because this is all about you, is just take a minute to go around and have each of you introduce yourself, share where you're calling in from today. If you're with the United Way, what position or role that you play, and if you're no longer with the United Way, where you may be. And because of the number of folks, we may have a few more still joining us. If we can keep it to like 30 seconds each, that would be great. And I'll just kind of go around the screen and, select people as we go. So you've heard from myself and Ed Rivera. So next to my right is Sally. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you. I would be glad to. Hello, I am Sally Aiken, and I am with the United Way of Greater Cincinnati. And I have been, I'm so grateful to have been on the United Way team here in Cincinnati for about, I just had my 20th anniversary not too long ago. And I have, for the past few decades, been on our resource development team. And I've just made a big move onto, and now I'm the director of our Claremont and Brown County, which are two of the rural counties that we serve surrounding Cincinnati. And I got a very special invitation to join United Way Next from one of our previous presidents and CEO, Dick Aft. And so you've got a good salesperson out there, and I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Sally. Yes, and thanks for the shout out for Dick Aft. Ron Frick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Frick, and I'm the president and CEO at the Lycoming County United Way. And I was privileged to be invited to join United Way Next from my friend Carole Peters and another colleague of mine that retired from the United Way Network a few years back. So I am serving now in my 8th year here in Lycoming County and serving Tioga and Sullivan County, two smaller counties to our north. So happy to meet all of you and be here.
Thanks, Ron. And he was also recruited really by Carrie Strauss. So Carrie's on our board, so that's great. Myra.
Hello, everyone. I'm Myra Goodman-Smith. I was at the United Way of Greater Richmond and Petersburg for 23 years. Sherry Armstrong recruited me to come on and be involved in this organization. She was my former CEO and still a good friend that I see often. At United Way, I was the AVP for planning, programs, allocations, then became the vice president of campaigns, organization development, corporate and foundation relations, and left the organization as vice president of operations. Since then, which has been 15 years, I'm president and CEO of Leadership Metro Richmond, our region's community leadership development organization.
It is so great that you mentioned Sherry. We're so grateful for her recruitment and just encouraging you to be here, Myra. So thanks.
Thank you.
Leah.
Hi, I'm Leah McGinty. I'm with United Way of St. Joseph County. I am new to the United Way family. I had a brief connection with United Way of Delaware before, but I never got to connect with United Way Next. So it's very exciting to learn everything that encompasses that. Very exciting.
And your United Way just recently joined. Jamie Cox. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're a part of today's session. Thanks for being here. Dave.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave Brown. I'm currently the Executive Director of the United Way of Sarnia-Lambton, which is in Sarnia, Ontario, Canada, directly across the river from United Way St. Clair County, Michigan, which is north of Detroit. Carole actually recruited me. Beginning next month, I'm transitioning into 3 days a week. While we transition new people in and new people into different positions, I'll become the associate director at that point for 1 year, and then full retirement next July. And I'm excited to know more about Next, and I guess looking forward to working with all of you.
That's great, Dave. Thank you. And I think Jeffrey Wilcox may have had a hand in bringing you.
Okay.
Right. So Jeffrey made the introduction because he is up in Seattle, Washington. So, so grateful to have one of our Canadian friends. And we have a couple other Canadian United Ways that are involved and engaged with Next, but we could certainly invite more. So thanks.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Regina Manning. Whoops, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I tried it earlier and it didn't work. So, all right, thank you. I'm Regina Manning from McHenry County, Illinois, and I grew up here, and I was in advertising production for about 20 years, went through various buyouts, and then the last buyout, they closed our department, and by way of a county program, I got into an internship with United Way, and you're all reminding me, one thing I really enjoyed about my finance role at United Way was learning about all the different United Ways. I mean, people designate funds and from all over the country, and it's just, I found that thrilling to just realize how people work together for this, common good, even though we each have our own specific needs. But anyway, it's really nice to meet all of you. And I'm assisting Carole with some editing and things that, she can hand off.
And a fun fact is Regina actually was recruited by me because she was on my United Way team in Illinois. So thanks, Regina, for being here. Kristen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Capitano. Along with Leah and Devanshi on the chat, I am brand new to the United Way of St. Joseph County. I'm brand new to this area. I'm brand new to the United Way. I'm working as a grant writer, so I'm just really excited to learn more and keep making connections.
That's great. Thanks, Kristen, for joining. Susan.
Technology work? Okay.
Yes. And are you calling in from Hawaii?
I am calling in from Hawaii, and I'm barely awake. So this is the first little voice that I'm putting to things here. But let's see, I retired as the president of the Aloha United Way, which is the United Way for the island of Oahu, the city and county of Honolulu. So one big metropolitan area, and the largest in the state here, the largest United Way in the state. I had been, unbeknownst to me, I think, mentored by my predecessor, Irv Lauber, for about 40 years. So I went through many different roles as a volunteer, as an agency chair, as eventually agency president for the United Way, for the YWCA of Oahu. So I was the first agency person to head the United Way here, and that was a very interesting process. Actually, the first female, the first person of color, all these firsts. So it's kind of typical for a story of the United Way in a in a local community. So I was invited to United Way West Next by Cynthia Round, whom I met during my period of time. She's fantastic, and I try to see her every time I go east. I'm currently working on only one board, trying to eliminate homelessness, and with the Native Hawaiian group to try to buy them a building out in a rural part of Oahu. So glad to be here, and thanks very much.
Thank you. And thanks for that shout out for Cynthia. She's been just a wonderful recruiter of other alums and retirees and current staff. So that's wonderful. Betsy Black.
Hi, I'm glad you waited until I was actually at my desk. So I'm Betsy Black. I'm in Oakland, California, and I worked at United Way of the Bay Area under Ann Wilson, who is introduced me to United Way Next, and worked there as Vice President of Evaluation and Insight. And that has a big factor in what I'm doing now. When I left United Way of the Bay Area, I continued supporting some research projects for them, as well as United Ways of California, and have a great relationship with Pete Manzo. So have been working with United Ways since 2010, I think. So been around for a while. And these days I am a systemic team coach, born out of my work doing a lot of capacity building with United Way grantees and all that community building work. Came a realization that teams sometimes need help figuring out how to team. So I can say more about that another day, but it's really great to meet all of you and be in community with all of you.
That's great, Betsy. Thanks for joining us today. Diane.
Thanks, Carol. Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Lepson. I am a board member of United Way Next, and I live in Camden, Maine. I spent 17 years in the system, 14 at Worldwide, 3 leading the major giving program for United Way of the National Capital Area in Washington, D.C. Today, I'm a consultant living the dream in Camden, Maine, where I work with United Ways, but also other nonprofits on fundraising, strategic planning, and board development. I've got to say, it's so cool to be here just to see a lot of alumni and retirees, people at different points in their journey, but also just to hear all the commonalities of the people who brought us in, because I think the person who recruited me was Susan Gilmore. So, but of course, it was great hearing Cynthia Brown's name, Dick Aft, who is like my mega hero, and just looking forward to getting to know all of you.
Thanks, Diane. Well, we also have a couple people on the phone, although they're not showing up on my screen. I'm looking at the list of names, and I just want to give Kelly Waldron is on. She said she's in a spot where she can only listen. So welcome, Kelly. And Devanshi, I'm not sure if you're in a position to unmute and share anything.
Can unmute. I'm so sorry, but my webcam is not working, so I cannot turn it on.
Sure.
But hi, I'm Devanshi. I'm here with Kristen and Leah from United Way of St. Joseph County. I literally joined 2 weeks back as a data manager here, and I moved from Illinois. So I'm pretty new to this organization and the area. So I'm just trying to meet everyone, make connections, and get to know everyone.
That's wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. And then Caitlin Guest.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm calling in from Wisconsin. I'm the program marketing associate at United Way Next. So I've been here about 2 years, and I'm excited to meet all of you. If you ever have any questions about events or any of the marketing promotions you see, or our newsletter or anything like that, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Caitlin. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone, since we had a few people that aren't showing up on the screen, but they're on the list. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and this is meant to be interactive. Feel free to unmute. If you have questions as we go, please just ask, or you can raise your hand, whatever you feel like is appropriate. We're a small enough group today, so I really want to have this be interactive. So Caitlin's going to share her screen and bring up a slide deck that is really meant to help guide us through this conversation, mainly so that I don't forget to touch on some of the key points or highlights that we want to share with you today. So we've already gone through a couple of the slides that were here through our introductions. So, go ahead and advance, Caitlin. So, I'm just going to, a few of these I'm going to read because I think it's important to mention. So when we rebranded, which was just over 2 years ago, our name changed from the United Way Retirees Association, which had focus on retirees, alumni, and current staff, to the name United Way Next. And it was meant to be more of an inclusive community where anyone can belong. Sometimes people say, oh, I thought you had to be a long-term employee of the United Way, retired as a CEO in order to be a part of this organization. But that is not the case. We want you to feel connected. And our hope is that you will make connections amongst our members across the United Way network, and that by engaging in our work, you will also feel that you're making a difference by sharing your talents and connecting to the resources. Next slide. So we've talked about yourselves, so we're going to go ahead to the next slide. And this is our true purpose. So for me, it's best to read it because I can't say that I have it completely memorized. So to harness the passion and experience of former and current United Way leaders, and we accomplish this by leveraging member commitment to the betterment of themselves, United Way, and their communities through continued connection, service, and inspiration. I think you'll find that all things that we're doing is really focused on the connection piece, and then we work to be in service across the United Way network and our membership. And that also leads to quite a bit of inspiration for each of us. United Way Next strives to be an inclusive, diverse network of leaders who share a profound sense of purpose and belonging. Next slide. Next slide. Well, I should go back to that slide and say, these are some of the faces of our members. So Cynthia Round is in the black coat up at the top with Ann Fox. And you may recognize some of these friends and these faces. We really have tried to expand our relationships across the United Way and make sure that everyone knows that there is a place, and that place is United Way Next. So after today, my goal for each of you would be to think about one or two of your friends that you think might actually benefit from being a part of Next and extend that invitation to them. Next slide. So in September of 2023, our board and United Way Next DEIB work group went through a process of updating our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'm not going to read this because you can find this document, this information on our website. But with everything we do, we are really operating from a lens of inclusion and equity and a place of belonging. We're doing this with intentionality, and we encourage you to help us along in this journey as we work through that. We want things to be interwoven in our programming, in the relationships and the connectivity that we have with each and every one of you. Next slide. So this can be found on our website, but just a little bit about the history of United Way Next. So as I mentioned, we were the Retirees Association. This started way back in the late 80s. It was a group of retirees who really were wanting to stay connected with one another. It was very focused on social time together and just spending time in relationship with old friends and kindred spirits. But over the years, they realized they really wanted to invest their time and energy beyond just socialization. And already back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we're starting to offer mentoring and planned giving consulting and other support to the network. And that has continued through today. We've done a lot more in the last couple of years related to serving the network, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Next slide, please. So who we are, we currently have actually probably more members than noted here. We have a total of over 500 engaged members. 363 was the last count, but I think we're probably up to almost 400 now with a significant increase this year. And then we have close to 135 United Ways that are actually contributing. So we engage with hundreds of local United Ways, but maybe all of them aren't making a monetary contribution. So when we say support, it's from a funding support perspective. We have 19 engaged board members, and we have 3 part-time staff. And some of our work that is accomplished beyond our volunteers is done so by contract support. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of the names of the people who have joined our board. The ones that are listed on the right that say new are those who have just joined this year. Our board chair, as mentioned, is Ed Rivera, who introduced himself earlier. Paul DeBazio is our chair-elect. Paul was the former chief development officer at United Way Worldwide and worked at some local United Ways. Barbara Edmond is a name you may know, who worked at United Way Worldwide as well and had some local United Way experience. She's ending her board term at the end of 24. DJ Hampton was a United Way Worldwide employee as well as a consultant, and he recently returned to the network to serve as the CEO of Trident United Way, and is our board treasurer. And Diane, who you met earlier, is our secretary. We're so grateful to Diane for serving in that role. Next slide. We have 7 different work groups. In order for us to get the work done, it's driven by volunteers, coordinated by our staff. And a lot of that is, led with my support and Caitlin's support as well. Christina Lawrence, who is not able to be with us today because she's in San Antonio, Texas, looking for a new home as part of her move across the country, is the 3rd staff member who also supports some of this work. So I will just briefly touch on what these work groups do. So Engage and Exchange is focused on our planning of all of our events. If you have an interest in being a guest speaker, you want to somehow serve on a panel to talk about something that you think might be a topic of interest, that would be the group that will handle that. We have our resource development member recruitment group that's really focused on attracting new members and ensuring we have enough revenue to support the budget and our organizational infrastructure. We have a small group of folks that work on our marketing committee that meets only just a couple times a year, but really takes a look at our current marketing and communication strategy, along with our social presence. We have a group of board members that are focused on nominating. We're always looking to attract new people who might want to serve on our board. We encourage you to get involved in our work groups and committees to try us out before we would extend the invitation then to be on the board. Finance, if you're a finance professional or you love numbers, we can always benefit from an extra person or two on the finance committee. We obviously are a small organization. Our budget is less than $200,000. And this group helps manage, that piece of work. As mentioned earlier, our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work group is very focused on making sure that we are looking through that lens with everything that we do. And that's really been an expansion over the last 2 years. That group also is focused on creating programming for our members that's centered around DEIB. And we have an upcoming roundtable that will be on Monday, the 17th, this next Monday, with Jason Daniels as a guest speaker. Some of you may know Jason as a former United Way professional. And then the last group is our member segment value and experience. It was a new committee developed 2 years ago to help us really look at our member segments and the experience that our members are having and how we can attract new and more members to Next. The 3 that are noted in gold are actually the 3 new committees that were launched 2 years ago. There were people focused in on marketing and finance, but there weren't actual committees formed. So that's why they're in gold and the others are in blue. Next slide. Just to list, we've listed the names of the people who are co-chairing those committees or chairing those committees. I will do a call out quick for Kelly Krebs, who is with the member segment value experience. Kelly is not on the board, but she does co-chair this committee. And we encourage people who may want to be in a leadership role to take advantage of that opportunity without necessarily having to be on the board. And Deborah Zulaga is a former United Way CEO from El Paso County, Texas, who just retired from her 30-year career at the United Way. She stepped off the board and has continued to serve as a work group chair for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. Next slide. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick. We host a variety of different events, And we invite you to be a part of those if you haven't already taken advantage of them. What you can expect from Next is that twice a year we will host United Way Worldwide Town Halls. Last year, Angela Williams spoke, CEO of United Way Worldwide, and Lexi Savage. Lexi's presentation was on the Thriving United Way framework model, which we are plugged into as a resource. We did host a worldwide town hall just on the 30th of May with Alice Archibald and Maureen Grant Hayes. And we have another one coming up at the end of October on the 31st. So come celebrate Halloween with us, where Amoye Kinney will be talking about the United Way brand refresh. Next slide. We have started, as I mentioned earlier, our diversity, equity, inclusion roundtables. We're hoping to have 4 this year. The one that I mentioned is coming up on Monday. And then we also started a wellness series, and that's gotten a lot of interest from local United Way staff, but also our alumni and retirees. We're just looking at different things that they can do personally to take care of themselves. And there will be a wellness session coming up in September with one of our alumni members, Naomi Asher, who is a former CEO that just recently left her United Way to go work for another nonprofit. And so she'll be talking a bit about burnout prevention, which is part of her dissertation. Next slide. We have other events that take place. Sometimes we offer leadership lesson type sessions. This particular one was for the Advanced Leadership Program graduates. So for anyone who's ever participated in the ELP program, it was designed intentionally to invite that group of people, but it was open for all members. And then we have regularly scheduled planned giving learning sessions, which have been a great value to the United Way staff who work in fundraising. So those are coming up. We've got another one coming up at the end of June and another one in July. So if you haven't seen those yet, those might be ones to consider taking advantage of if your role is centered around fundraising. Next slide. I do want to mention our interim executive program. So we have a lot of United Way staff who may retire or leave the network and are looking for their what's next, and people decide to go through the interim academy. These individuals that are on the screen, their faces, are all people who have graduated from that program over the last couple years. When I started, there were about 20 people who had participated in the interim academy and graduated. We're up to almost 50 people. And I think by the end of July, we have 3 new people starting today. In fact, we will have, hit that 50 mark. So there's more information about the interim academy. If that piques your interest, I certainly can share that information with you. As a member of Next, you receive a 30% discount, which is pretty significant savings if you go through the academy. And some of these individuals have been placed across the network serving in CEO or Chief Development Officer roles. And all of that is a paid opportunity for these individuals who choose to do that work. So with that said, I'm sure there'll be some questions at the end. Happy to move on and tell you more about it later. Next slide. These are just some pictures of familiar faces, again, from some of the sessions that we've led. Top right is Carrie Strauss, who was the person that recruited Ron Frick. Next slide. We want to make sure you stay connected with us, so we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, which comes out quarterly, as well as follow us on social. My hope is that each of you have already been invited to follow our page and be a part of our private alumni, United Way alumni and professionals group. If not, we can certainly invite you, or you can just go out yourself and click on the follow link. Next slide. All of you have access to United Way Online. So as staff of the United Way, of course, you would have access, but as you leave the United Way through Next, you can gain access to United Way Online. And the members that choose to sign up for that often will say there's still content there that they're interested in. They like to receive updates. The Global Digest, which is the new form of the breakfast, is sent out twice a week with updates, and it really just helps members stay informed about what's happening within the United Way. And for some of our retirees, that's a big part of why they sign up. They still want to stay very connected to that work. So if that's of interest to you and you haven't already done that, just let us know. We can get you the registration links, get you signed up. Next slide. For our local United Way members, I think that Ron and I have talked a lot about the things that could benefit for his United Way, but for Dave and others on the screen that are representing a United Way, we want to make sure that you know there's mentorship opportunities for CEO level leaders and staff. There's the planned giving sessions that we talked about. Often we'll have United Way leaders ask about consultants that may be available either pro bono or for paid work centered around strategic planning or board development, board engagement, board retreats. And so if there's anything that on the slide that piques your interest, you'd like to know more, I'm happy to share that with you. We've also just recently started a next chapter chats, which is going to launch on July 17th. That's our inaugural launch, and it's for staff who are in transition. So as people in the United Way system who might currently be working, if you hear of someone who's either leaving or has unfortunately experienced a loss of their role due to a furlough or a reduction in workforce, we want to make sure those people feel they can join Next and be a part of that transitions group, and we can help them along in what's next for them. Next slide. Member feedback. So I guess we'll stop here and just take a moment to ask for some feedback and really just hear from all of you, questions that you might have, thoughts around what you're hearing, or something that you want to share from just the information so far. Don't be shy. Or questions that you might have too.
I've got one question. Our United Way, because we're a United Way, we get free versions of Canva. We've got access to LinkedIn Learning, that kind of thing. Once I leave the United Way, of course, and retire, I won't have access to those kinds of things. Being a member of Next, does that then extend my eligibility to use some of those?
That's a great question. So currently the LinkedIn Learning is not available to United Way Next members. That is exclusive because the licenses are paid for through United Way Worldwide and for exclusive to United Way staff. But that's a great question. That might be something that we could talk with United Way Worldwide about. So I should mention, because this is a great segue to this part of the conversation, we work closely with United Way Worldwide and the state associations, and we work in partnership with them and really don't go out and start doing things in the network unless we're invited to the table. So to that point, I think, Dave, it's a great point that this is something we could advocate on behalf of our members and say, hey, LinkedIn Learning might be something that we'd like to have available to our community. So thanks for raising that. As far as Canva's concerned, if you're talking about like the social media platform that's made available through Worldwide, are they making that available to you for free?
I think them and Grammarly provides a pro version. If you're a United Way, you got access to their paid professional versions at no charge.
Okay.
So we signed up on that, but of course you have to have a at the United Way email address to be invited and qualify. So I didn't know if there was opportunities for those kinds of things here.
Yeah. That's a really great idea, that maybe we need to think about, because we are a 501c3. I know you have to have an email address that would be at United Way, but if there was a way for us to help provide, through Next, that resource, if it really was something of value. I think a lot of people probably have, like I've had my own version of Canva that you can sign up for free, and it's not, even if you have to pay, it's not a huge cost, because I've had that before. But we'll take that into consideration. So thanks for asking that. Other questions or thoughts? So I'm curious to know, for those of you who joined individually and have engaged just a little, which it's probably maybe too soon for you to share, which might be why there's hesitancy to ask any questions. Is there anything that you could say, like one aha moment or something? And I'm thinking specifically Betsy and Ron, because I've talked with you individually, if there's anything that either of you might share, and I'm happy to share some thoughts if you don't have any, because I'm just thinking of some ways that we've already connected that could help the others understand how we've worked together.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. So Carole and I met each other as CEOs. Seems like a long time ago, but I guess not too long ago. Pre-COVID, so everything now is pre-COVID, post-COVID. So we started basically went to the same CEO cohort at United Way Worldwide. So Carole's been a big help to me to try to connect existing employees with other United Way executives and to try to use the Next network to try to help our relatively small United Way here in Central Pennsylvania. So that was really the genesis for me joining Next, was to see if we could explore ways to help our United Way, mostly at this point in mentoring, but some other things that might be of value to us around strategic planning and resource development as well. So that was really the genesis for me joining, both as a United Way and as a member individually.
Thanks, Ron. That's great. And I'm thinking, Betsy, I'm going to share this. So Betsy is a consultant, works out in California. And when she and I had our conversation, what I learned about her is she's very passionate about certain topics. And I encouraged her to think about, if she were to be a guest speaker for a next session, what would that look like for her, and what topics would resonate with her that she feels, based on what she's heard about Next, could bring value to this community. So Betsy, I don't know if you want to share any more.
I think there's just a more general, so much of who we are, we're out in the community working with organizations, and we see organizations that need better organizational fiber. And so part of it is just, how do you think about that, and how do you help organizations do it? I'm going to correct Carole on one thing. I'm not a consultant anymore. I dropped that from my descriptor. I just coach teams. And it's just kind of wonderful. But the topic that's really, I get chapped every time I hear somebody say I'm conflict averse. And a couple of reasons for that. One is because I think that it mislays what the definition of conflict is, and conflict is a necessary ingredient for innovation. And the second is really thinking about the different ways that we do conflict and being more expansive about what that is. And so one thing that I've offered, I do a boot camp for the Nonprofit Learning Lab around what does the good side of conflict look like, and how does it serve innovation, and how do you recognize the frameworks? How do you avoid going into the toxic, unhealthy side of conflict? How do you bust some myths around what that looks like? And when I talked to Carole about that, she's like, I think, as a diversity topic, because actually avoiding conflict causes more problems for inclusivity and equity than getting into it. And there's a lot of work that's being done in the more progressive circles around something called principled struggle. Like, if you're gonna do the good work, you got to get in there. So lots of pieces of that I think are really helpful if you're working with organizations that are trying to innovate and really trying to avoid conflict, because they think harmony is better. Because when you're mission minded, you think you're supposed to be harmonious, and harmony is good to an extent. So anyway, a bit rambly, because I get excited and I want to say all the things. But yeah. And then one of the topics for my future is going to be around, everybody says you're supposed to build trust, but we're a bit over the idea of ropes courses. And those types of things, like how do you actually build it? So anyway, Ed, just to crack you up, my maiden name is Baum, and my nickname for many years has been Boomer. So I'm so booming. That kind of cracks me up, because Boomer is what all my friends call me. So
that's great. Thank you, Betsy, and thanks for clarifying you're a coach.
Yes,
that's good. I should know that, because I think your email even says that, right?
Yeah. It's okay. Anyway.
Anyone else? Yeah, thank you. Anyone else who wants to share something, or just?
I'd like to mind. This is Myra Smith. What a I'll tell you my curiosity is when it comes to United Way Worldwide. Being at United Way for 23 years, I helped write the Standards of Excellence, was in the graduating class in Minority Leadership Development Program. Very involved with the CRM movement, if you will, and built one of the first E-Waves. My curiosity is knowing that was the foundation of thought for CRM and with United Ways moving from being a fundraiser to a community impact organization. And we did the business plans years ago. My curiosity is the makeup now of what is United Way Worldwide? What is its foundation? What is its focus? Not trying to dig up old stuff, but we did a lot of old stuff, started stuff, didn't finish the stuff, went back to some new stuff. And just curious to know from an executive standpoint, where is United Way today? And I don't know if we can get that through this.
Right. So that's yeah, that's a really great to ask that, Myra. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's it.
So I will share this because it may not be obvious to everyone, and I don't want to make any assumptions that United Way Next is a standalone 501c3, and we really are separate from United Way Worldwide. We are the Alumni Association, and so, obviously we wouldn't have been created without the United Way brand and support of United Way Worldwide. And as I mentioned earlier, we do work in partnership with them and take the lead from them when they have topics, ideas, thoughts that they want us to be a part of. So thanks, Betsy, for joining. And also the state associations. So we try to make sure we're plugging in where it brings value, where it's needed, where there's identified gaps. We work very closely with the executive leadership team at Worldwide. And our liaison is LaDawn Nagel, who is chief of staff. LaDawn is the person that replaced Brian LaChance. So some of you may remember Brian. And Brian was the liaison for the United Way Retirees Association prior to the rebrand and the change in leadership. I guess I would just ask Ed or Diane, since they're on the board, if they want to share some thoughts around the relationship and any other thoughts.
Well, I'll jump in, and if I understand your question, Myra, you're kind of looking for where is United Way Worldwide? What is the essence of their strategies right now and their plans and that kind of thing?
The relationship part, I get that part. I just want to be informed as a member of, we're still UW in the name, even though it's a separate organization. I think as retirees and people who have put many, many years into these organizations, it would be great to know, where are you now? And I don't think that's being imposing upon them, even though we want to be responsive to what they want from us. But I think it also could be a little bit of a turn to what we might need from them.
Well, candidly, our organization has been really in sort of that discovery phase with United Way Worldwide, as we've completed some of the strategic work that Carole referenced earlier. And Carole's been a huge help in that liaison and trying to clarify. But as you know, the Worldwide organization is also going through a lot of transition and change themselves. I think they have clearly launched some defined strategies around the Thriving United Way. And if you haven't seen that presentation, I think there is a recording or video of that, Carole, isn't there not?
Yes.
But it really describes where the United Way Worldwide and the network is trying to do. And the Thriving United Way represents a lot of our past, a lot of our current operations, but also future aspirations of the network in terms of how we solve problems in communities. So I'm very excited about what I think the current leadership group has presented to the field about utilizing some of those same strategies that have made success possible, like collective impact, cross-sector leadership, dynamic engagement with decision makers in community. They've really done a good job, I think, of presenting a thriving model. And as Angela has said often, she feels that that cannot succeed long term without successful workplace campaigns. And as we all know, those have not been as successful in recent years as in the past. So yeah, I think they're pulsing some very, very good strategies that I think will be the next move of the United Way network. And I think United Way Next will be a part of that in a fairly good measure. So I'm optimistic about where they're heading, and I'm optimistic about where we're going. But I would say that a lot of that is in motion.
Well, I appreciate. I didn't mean for you guys to go down that rabbit hole because that's not where I want you to go. That's not where I want you to go. I think you answered my question. There is something I can go look at to see, or there's to see. This is my first meeting, so don't make assumptions that we all know what's going on.
Yeah, that's okay.
So
no, it's a great question, Myra.
So I just want to know to point me in the direction in which I can learn more. That's beneficial for me to be part of this group.
Well, we'll make sure that you get that information, right, Carole? We'll pass that.
So I'll just speak to that. I think that's great. So thanks, Myra. So we record all of our sessions. Now, the reason behind recording them is so for those people who registered for today and can't participate, they could come and listen to this later, right? But those, especially the ones that are centered around specific topics like the DEIB roundtable, we're sensitive to what we record because some of that may be confidential and private. But the worldwide town halls are recorded. All of those are on our website under events. There's an upcoming events, and then there's an events recording. And if it's been recorded, it's there. It's like a library of resources. So we'll make sure for this group, Caitlin, as a follow-up, can you include the recording links for all of our events so people can find it easily, and then they can scroll down and pick the event they want to listen to? I would highly recommend going and listening to those town halls. And there's been a total of 3 of them since I've been here that I think would really be beneficial. Even the last one that was done, topic was on revenue diversification, but it gave a lot of insight around the way they're going about this and the support to the network that Worldwide is intending to provide. So thanks, Myra, for asking.
Thank you.
I think Diane had maybe a follow-up.
I do. And Myra, what I latched onto as part of your question was about United Way Worldwide, kind of like shifting from the fundraising to the community building model. And I can look at it, I look at this from my little micro aspect of it. So when I was at Worldwide, one of the things I did was I led the Women's Leadership Council, which was the precursor to Women United. And when I was at Worldwide, there was this big focus in terms of women's leadership councils being a driver of revenue and focusing in on that $1,000 gift that members of the women's leadership councils would do. Today, what I'm really seeing is, and I see you're shaking your head a little bit, so I'd love to hear the response. But today, what I see with Women United is the sense that, okay, it's focusing on women's assets in terms of time and talent and all of that, and leading with that more so than having the revenue be like the main driver for how to get women involved with the movement. Myra, I'd love to hear your reaction.
My reaction is bravo. You're on point. Absolutely. Relationship building is a big part of what we kind of missed out. Right there is right there in the product development manuals we did years ago, building those relationships. We put the money first, and that has been a legacy.
Sue.
This is fascinating, and this is my first meeting too, Myra. So it's I have to say, after I retired from the United Way locally in 2011, I was a member of the Tocqueville Society there because I was kind of a thing that all of the presidents did. So that was new for me, but I never got another call from my United Way, my own United Way, where I had been for 10 years. Yeah. And I know that's not a unique experience. So my interest in coming back to this is I saw a lot of old names that were identified to me as my predecessor had said as the good guys, meaning people who had a kind of a worldview, holding hands across different communities of geographic or racial or all of those things. Sort of the true spirit, I think, of the United Way and the concept that we could together in our communities and broader have a real impact on people's lives. And there's sort of the soup to nuts thing, right? So where does everyone fit in? What are our skills? How can we do those things? And I looked at didn't have a chance to really go through everything yet, Carole, because I'm glad there's a lot online. But I think there are lots of good programs. I keep leaping because as I get older, I keep leaping to how many years am I still going to be active. I leap to the end point, which is where are we trying to get in the end? We're trying to get our act together. We're trying to know what the good practices are. How do we learn about them quickly? How do we make connections and get people like our coach that had to leave? How do we get those voices to help everybody who's struggling basically with the same human issues? I'm on the kind of this hub organization that you have in every community that's providing services to the homeless. So my hub is the one that all the federal monies come through. We aren't unique, but which are the best in the country? And how can we learn from them? And how can we help? Because we're all now what we would call out here, we're the kupuna, right? We're the older generation. It's sometimes difficult to get the wisdom of the ages transmitted to the younger generations, but I feel like that's what we would like to do as a legacy thing, right? We want to be able to help bring people along. So my interest is in trying to use all that experience as you are trying to, I think, Carole, pull together and see how we can transmit that, bring people along, help them where, and I think that's what we're trying to do. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to preach to the choir, but
this is great.
Was excellent.
Yeah, this is great. I was just chatting with Kristen and Leah because they are local United Way. And Devanshi, I didn't text you this, but I'm just going to say this out loud, that everyone comes to this community for different reasons, right? And we want that. We want you to plug in and be a part of it and begin to connect with your old friends, new friends, whatever it is. But for like local United Way staff, sometimes it's like specific. I can come and speak to your team. I can talk about the resources. In your situation, Kristen, Jamie may know a little bit about Next, but he probably, because he's newer in his role, because he's just returned to the network, could really benefit. And it's similar to what I did with Ron and his team and have discovery calls. For individual members like Sue and Myra, you've had this long, rich legacy career with the United Way. If there are people that you want to reconnect with, that you're like, you know what? I saw someone's name on the list, but I haven't talked to them in years. Can you get us reconnected? I know so many people who have done that and have just found great value in just seeing their old friends, right? Which I think you're doing already with people that you've mentioned. But please let us know about that. And then, Dave, I don't want to, you're still a local United Way leader, but you're kind of moving in the direction of you're going to be retiring soon, right? And so like, how can we help support you in that transition? And so, building the community for the community as we move forward in the way that makes sense for all of you, not for us. This isn't really our agenda. It's really what does this community of members want? So I encourage you not to be afraid to, reach out to me directly after today or even in the coming months, right? I don't know when that will be, but if the light bulb goes on or you have a question and you're like, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I could benefit through this community, let me know, because my chief position is chief dot connector and helping connect all the people to all the things that make sense for each and every one of you. And I am so honored that I have the pleasure to meet all of you and get to know you personally and then make those connections or help, find ways to have you engage in this community that brings value. So, one of those ways is through mentorship. And, looking at Kristen and Devanshi and Leah and Ron's team and thinking about, and even Dave, right? You're working at the United Way and there's still things going on within your organization that you might say, I would really benefit from talking to somebody who did this, who understands this. So I'm not having to reinvent the wheel or explain things. They have institutional knowledge. And then connecting even peer to peer with other local United Way leaders across the network that you may say, I feel like I'm alone on the island in St. Joe County. Who across the states could I talk with? I mean, just looking at Ron and Sue and Ed and Dave and Myra and Diane, Regina, knowing that they have this rich experience of working at the United Way, what great resources they are. So, we can tap into that network in whatever way makes sense. And if you're purely here for fun and you just want to hang out and enjoy your time with whoever you connect with, we're good with that too. So thanks, Ron. I know you're going to have to jump off. So thanks for joining us today. Well, this has been, I mean, we're certainly can stay on a few minutes longer. Today was really about connecting us together as a community, introducing you to Next. Our website has a lot of information on it, so it's a great resource. We've been building that over the last 2 years. I do invite people to share their personal story about themselves, where they were within the United Way, where they are today, even if they're still in the United Way. And we have that as a section in our newsletter called Making Connections. And I really am always looking for volunteers who maybe in just 300 words or less would like to share their story. And if that's something that sounds interesting, let me know. We are going to be building out our 2025 calendar of events. So if you feel like you'd love to be a guest speaker or be on a panel to talk about something that you think would bring value in this community, that certainly is another great opportunity for not a big time commitment to engage. And also mentors. I'm always looking for people who would be willing to serve as a mentor to our United Way staff across the country, with so many new people joining the network and so much transition in CEO leadership roles. It's great to have people that really are passionate about this work, and those people are all of you. So don't hesitate to raise your hand if interested, or email me if you have any questions about what we kind of covered today. So any other thoughts or questions?
Just want to thank you, Carole and Ed, for hosting this, and look forward to more conversation.
Great, thanks.
Great to meet you.
I feel like I ran into you in Alexandria or something.
Probably did sometime along the way.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, with that said, please, again, if there's anything y'all need from us, we welcome you to join us in whatever way makes sense. And we'll look forward to seeing you at a future event or, in a future conversation if there's anything that comes up. So with that said, have a great rest of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.